That song was from 1970. It's probably one of my favorite songs to this day. That was a long time ago. Jeez, 53 years ago. I'm old. All right, this is page 109. Practice exercises number 1. It says to do all the rest of this stuff by hand. Forget that crap. We're not going to do it by hand. But here's the data set from last week on page 80, what was it, 89? And it's about the grade histogram. So it wants to find measures of central tendency and variability. We'll just click them as we go. We're going to go to Analyze, and I'm going to go to Descriptives, and this time I'm going to go to Explore, and we're going to click over that, and the Statistics. What does he want? He wants the measures of central tendency. Those are all inclusive already, so there's nothing to click. So we're going to get the mean, the mode, standard deviation, the range, quartiles, interquartile range, compute the reasonable boundaries, and if there are any outliers, and make a box plot. You know what? We could probably do that all at the same time. And oops, hold on a second. Let me make sure you can see this. Right, we went to all of that good stuff. Now we're going to plots. And we don't want that. We do want a histogram. The histogram tells us if it's normal or not. And then we'll do that. You'll notice up in the top left-hand corner, box plots are checked by default. So again, we want both of these bad boys. Click OK. Alright, so let's look at the means. Okay, the mean is 80.125. Confidence interval, right? That's the mean plus or minus basically 2 standard deviations. And we don't worry about the trim mean. The median, that's the one right in the middle. So 80, a score of 80, half the people were above it, half the people were below it. Variance, that's very important. That's not a big number, right? That's the variance. The standard deviation, if I take the square root of the variance, I get the standard deviation. There's the minimum, there's the maximum, there's the range, right? Or the range is you subtract the lowest from the highest. Interquartile range, that is the difference between quartile 3 and quartile 1. So if I find out what quartile 3 was and I subtract quartile 1, that's the difference between the two. But we don't use interquartile ranges to identify outliers anymore. And there's the skewness and the kurtosis. And they both look fine to me. And this one says it's kind of normal, right, with the 200 asterisk. The Kolmogorov-Smirnov test says it's normal, and its twin brother, the Shapiro-Wilk test, agrees with it. And it's not perfect, but it's normal enough. So QQ plots, that is a test of normality as well. And for a normal data set, these dots should be really close to the line, and they are, right? And we don't look at the QQ plots. That's the variance between the ones that miss, and we don't use that anymore. But there's a box plot. Look at that. Bam. And it's pretty normal, right? The stretch of the tall one and the little one are pretty much the same, and the median is right in the middle. So there's the first part. Now we're going to check for outliers in a much better way than this old book is trying to show you. It's quite easy. We simply go to Analyze, Descriptives, Descriptives. And since we only got one variable, we're going to kick that in there. Shkabam. And you see this little box right here? Save standardized values as variables. So what it's going to do is it's going to take every score from this grade thing and turn it into a z-score. So remember, a z-score is it takes each individual score, minuses the group mean, and divides that difference by the standard deviation. So a positive z-score means it's above the mean, and a negative z-score means it's below the mean. And so after we do that, we go back to the output page, and it made a new variable. See, it's got the z there. So what we do is we click on it, right-click on the title up there, and I always put sort descending. So literally, the cutoff is 1.96, and that's going by the empirical rule, which states that 95% of your data set should fall between 2 standard deviations, either less than or greater than. So, and the real number is 1.96, but 2, nobody's going to yell at you if you use 2. We're talking about 4 100ths, so it's nothing. So it looks like there are 2 very minor outliers up there, and nothing on the bottom. So you got two very minor outliers, and I would leave them in because they're barely outliers, right? So I am very against getting rid of data just because somebody tells you that's an outlier. That really doesn't float my boat because it is a real piece of data, right? Do not get rid of real pieces of data. So that is my rule of thumb. And that is my granddaughter, if you can hear her playing in the swimming pool. So what does this mean? This means that 25% of the students scored between 100 and about, what is that, like 86 or 87. So another 25% scored between 86 or 87 and 80. Another 25% scored between 80 and, 72 or something. And the last 25%, the bottom guys, they scored less than 72 all the way down to like 65. So that's it. I forgot to get the actual quartiles, so if you can't read them from this thing, you just go to Analyze, Descriptives, Frequencies, and again we put the grades in there, and what do we want? We want the quartiles. Where are they? Oh, look right there, quartiles. Remember, quartile is that piece of data in a data set that splits it into either 25% below, 75% above, or 50% above, 50% below, also called the median. That's the second quartile. The third quartile has 25% above it, 75% below it, and the fourth quartile is simply the maximum. So we really only care about quartile 1, quartile 2, and we already know what the median is. So, there they are right there. So the quartiles, the lowest, quartile 1 is 72.25. So that means, again, 25% of the people scored less than that. Quartile 2, or the median, is 80. So between 72 and 80 was 25% of the people. And between 80 and 87.5 was another 25%. And the final 25%, you'll notice it's not listed, but that's from 87 up to your maximum. So 25% of your students scored over 87.5. I should probably show you something real quick. I didn't. I apologize. I did not show you this part. So do not use this outliers here. Boom. Because these aren't real outliers. So the box plot uses, I believe, the interquartile rule. But no, again, nobody else does. That's been gone a long time. So, but here, let me show you what happens. You get these little bubbles, and it says, "Oh, this is an outlier. This is an outlier," but only on this guy, only on the box plot. So this says there were no outliers, and I believe them, right? So that's about it. Now, let me show you part 2. So exercise 2 says, go ahead and download the SPSS welfare data file, Appendix A, in the book. And when you get to Appendix A, it says, go to this website and download the data. And I did, right? Watch this. Lyceum Books. And boom, they're out of business. So again, this book was published in like 2011. That was 12 years ago. And so I'm just kind of griping about it because there is no Lyceum Books anymore, right? So if we go to the website, I wasted a half an hour trying to find the data set. And so if you don't know the data, you can't answer the freaking question. So let's see what pops up here. So it's becoming a template, and that tells me that it's already switched to a different site. And again, Lyceum Books, yeah, they were big in the day back in like 1990 or something. They were pretty popular, but that was 30 years ago, right? So time eats everybody. So there's nothing to do in part 2. So I hope this stuff helps. MGZ out.